Hi, it's Lori Neverman from Common Sense Home, and today we're going to make the English Muffin Bread from my bread book, Never Buy Bread Again. And we start with 2 cups of warm milk. And I heated this up before we got going, so it's ready to roll. And 1/2 cup of warm water. And then we prep part of our dry ingredients with 3 cups of bread flour, and I buy my flour in bulk, and I usually use a white wheat, which is a hard wheat, and then let's see, 5 teaspoons of, well, actually, this one normally uses active dry yeast, so I'm going to cut that back a little bit because I have the safe instant yeast, which is a little bit more aggressive. So we're going to go with 4 teaspoons of safe instant. And there's information about making substitutions in the book. And 2 teaspoons of salt. And I get that in bulk too. I think I've refilled this container about 50 times already. But it's so nice, it looks so good. And baking soda. And sugar. And then I mix these dry ingredients together. And then those are going to be added to your wet ingredients. Your flour goes into the milk and water mixture. Okay. I'm going to put the lid on so I don't end up with flour flying all over the place. And fire that up. Round 1 blended. Then I'm going to add the remaining flour 1 cup at a time and mix a little bit after each addition. And you don't have to use a mixer for this if you have one. Certainly it's convenient, but you can also mix it by hand. Mixer, you want to be careful. You don't want to just crank that baby up because that is actually very hard on your bread. So keep it down on the lower settings. You can make this recipe with fresh milled flour, but it will be a little bit heavier. It's still quite sticky yet, so I'm going to go ahead and add my last cup of flour. Sometimes you need to adjust your flour ratio, so do pay attention as you're adding, because especially when your air is dry in the winter, that will suck the moisture out of your ingredients. That's why the professionals often go by weight as opposed to volume, but for the home cook, a lot of times it's just easier to grab your set of cup measures. that is, you can see we've got, it's sticky. Like I said, this is a little bit different than your average bread recipe. It's sticky and it looks more like a really stiff batter. So I'm gonna go ahead and divide that up between the 2 loaf pans, assuming I can actually get this paddle out of here. Wiggle, come on baby, work with me. There we go. It's a very stiff dough. Reminds me back in, oh gosh, elementary school, in making flour paste for paper mache projects. It's a wee bit sticky. And get that out of there. Whoop. As always, when you're working in the kitchen, you want to make sure that you wash your hands thoroughly before getting involved with your dough, because things can certainly get messy. And clean your work area. Get your ingredients out, prep your pans, so when it's time to get into the bread action, you can keep things rocking and rolling. You know what? I'm going to form these into loaves a little bit. Depending on how stiff your dough is, you may end up just spreading it with a spatula, but this batch came out fairly firm, so loaf shaping it is. And here's number 1. Doot. And number 2. And here's a cheat. I don't always make my bread loaves even. And I have a suspicion that this is one of those times, because of course I'm on camera. And so I'm looking at the 2 sizes of the loaves and noticing that one of them is significantly larger than the other. So before putting them into the pan, I'm going to adjust the size of the loaves so they're a little bit closer. We want twinsies, not brother from another mother. So try again. Bread is forgiving. It doesn't care. It waits patiently for your assistants to form the correct shape. All right, I think we're doing a little better now. So, not precise, but you can tell it's homemade, it's rustic. It's not extruded some rather high-priced machine. We'll let these guys sit in here, get them on down in the pan. Bloop. Spread them out just a little bit. And then I am going to get these covered and let them sit and rest for about 40 minutes till they're roughly doubled in size. And yeah, and when we're getting close to the end of the timer, we turn on the oven to 400 degrees. You can see our bread is nice and risen, roughly doubled in size. I could probably put these in just a hair earlier. And we're going to put these into a preheated 400 degree Fahrenheit oven. And these are going to bake for about 20 to 25 minutes until golden brown. So I'm going to set my timer. And you always want to go at the low end of the time and check it at that, because you can't unbake your bread. So ready to rock and roll. We'll be back about 20 minutes. I just heard our timer go off. And they look pretty brown. I'm going to pull these out. Close that up. And then move these to a cooling rack to cool completely. And see that cornmeal makes it so that they pop right out. And then you want to be careful sometimes when your bread loaves are cooling. I'm actually going to prop these up on the loaf pans. That way they have better air circulation. Because sometimes you'll find that when your bread is cooling, it actually sweats and builds up condensation underneath the rack, and that can make your bread soggy. So that's all there is to it. You can see these have that cornmeal crusting just like a regular English muffin. The texture is dense and it has that sort of chewiness to it, just like a regular English muffin, except for it's a heck of a lot easier to make 2 loaves of bread than roll all little rounds. And if you have any comments or questions, just please leave a note below. If you want the full recipe, again, this is featured in my book, Never Buy Bread Again. And thank you so much for watching.